So before this crisis kicked off, quite frankly, all the governments that have handled this crisis very well were on top, pretty much on top of it, and were trying to take care of stuff as quickly, get stuff in place, putting lockdown in place, implementing social distancing, closing schools, you name it. Every country was well ahead of us. In fact, we now have a very interesting speech to go over from Boris, because about 7 weeks, so 7 weeks before the lockdown actually happened in the UK, Boris Johnson delivered a very interesting speech that he has been trying to hide from the public, that wasn't made public, and it goes to show everything that has been done, all these decisions that have helped the virus and hindered the NHS's response have been ideologically motivated. And I want to echo Philip Pullman's comments that we went over yesterday, that there should be not only a open public investigation into what went on, but we should also look at bringing criminal charges against Boris Johnson and people in the government who did this. I think it's not going to happen, but it's something that I think we should definitely be calling for and definitely trying to hold people to account for, because our government certainly doesn't even want to admit any responsibility for this whole crisis. But there you go. So this is what this comes from the Byline Times. So Boris Johnson extraordinarily proclaimed that the coronavirus would trigger a desire for market segregation that would go beyond what is medically rational to the point of doing real unnecessary economic damage. And at that moment, humanity needs some government somewhere that is willing at least to make the case powerfully for freedom of exchange, several weeks before a nationwide lockdown was imposed in the UK. These comments again raise serious questions about why the UK government, in contrast to nearly all other countries around the world, did not introduce early social distancing and lockdown measures in the UK when it knew that COVID-19 was spreading. The extent to which a misguided and deeply flawed attempt to follow a herd immunity approach wasted vital time, and why the government is continuing a lax approach even now to mass testing, contact tracing, and providing vital equipment to the front line, and the closing of international borders. Speaking ahead of a post-Brexit trade deal on the 3rd of February 2020 at the Old Royal Navy College in Greenwich, the Prime Minister's comments also beg the question: to what extent did the libertarian ideology lead the science, rather than the science lead the government's policy on COVID-19? In the speech, which can be viewed here and read here, Johnson also talked about trade growth slowing down. Global growth in itself is anemic, and the decline in global poverty is beginning to slow, he said. And in that context, we are starting to hear some bizarre autark rhetoric when barriers are going up, and when there is a risk that new diseases such as coronavirus will trigger a panic and a desire for market segregation that go beyond what is medically rational to the point of doing real and unnecessary economic damage. Then at that moment, humanity needs some government somewhere that is willing to make the powerful case for freedom of exchange. He went on to suggest that the UK would be that country, and would, in his own words, ready to take off its Clark Kent spectacles and leap into the phone booth and emerge with its cloak flowing as the supercharged champion. The speech was nearly made a month before Johnson appeared on This Morning on the 5th of March, on which he was asked whether defying the coronavirus was about flattening the curve of the pandemic. He said, "That's where a lot of debate has been done, and one of these theories is that perhaps you could take it on the chin, take it all in one go, and allow disease, as it were, to move through the population without taking as many as draconian measures. I think it would be better if we take all the measures that we can now to stop the peak of disease." The following week, the government's chief scientist advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, appeared on Sky News and told them, "We think this virus is likely to be one of those that comes year on year and becomes like a seasonal virus. Communities will become immune to it, and it's going to be an important part of controlling this in the longer term. About 60% is the sort of figure you need to get herd immunity. It also comes as continuing reports have clearly laid out that people who have had coronavirus are getting it again. As far as we are aware, there is no immunity currently being built up by these people who have had the coronavirus." Herd immunity, allowing the virus to pass through the population without interventions in order for people to catch and then develop protection against the virus, has never been at the centre of a response to any public health emergency in the absence of a vaccine. Following a complete U-turn after a report by the Imperial College, the COVID-19 response team stated that the government's mitigation would lead to 260,000 deaths. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has claimed several times that herd immunity was never a goal and strategy of the government, and journalists raising questions about it is now a distraction. It's not a distraction at all. We should absolutely be looking up why the government was pursuing this as an idea, and we know why. It wanted to push ahead with the hardest of all possible Brexits, which is just to go no deal, just walk off the cliff and accept that the damage was going to be there. But with the coronavirus, that means that there are extra damages going in place, and it wanted to try and basically get herd immunity strategy in place so that regardless, even though people were going to die, the economy would at least still be able to function. So that's what really went on. This was the ideology that the Conservatives were pushing, for people to die so that the economy would continue on. So, and of course, not only do you have the Prime Minister on this morning, but you have the comments that he made here suggest highly otherwise, that this is not a distraction, that this was actual government policy. And yeah, basically they were going to sacrifice people for the most extreme form of Brexit and capitalism they could. Boris Johnson can't deliver. We are going to face, after coming out of this, the International Monetary Fund has already said we are looking at a financial crash. That, coupled with Brexit, is going to make our situation even worse. And trying to recover during that time is going to make it even worse. One of the things that I've continually said on this channel, as time has gone on, it has continuously come out how bad Brexit is going to be, and that the lies that the Leave campaign told were just not there, that it's completely fanciful to think that we can be, as Boris Johnson puts it, the Clark Kent of of the world, and somehow coming out as Superman of this situation. That's not possible. Even now, economic theory itself disagrees. Economic theory, one of the things that you've got to look at is what we call trade gravity. Every single country around the world, all its closest trading partners, are not halfway around the world or across a sea. It's always the countries that are closest to it. And the closest countries to that are the EU and the single market. That isn't going to change. Even if we get a trade deal with America and all these other countries, enough economists have taken a look at the potential trade deals and have shown that even if we get these amazing, fantastic trade deals that they go continuously bang on about but can't actually put into practice what's going to be in these trade deals, they would not increase, they would not be able to suffice from the loss of being outside the single market and customs union. But, you know, we've only been talking about that on this channel for the past 3 years or more at this point.